Calaroga Shark Media.
Well, this sure is interesting. Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Shane Gillis says he was asked to come back to SNL for a year to play Trump. Shane was at Skankfest, the comedy festival in Las Vegas. We'll talk about that in a second. Luis J. Gomez said of Shane, nobody thought he was coming to the festival this year. Shane said, explain why. Gomez asked, can I explain why? Gillis gave him the go-ahead. Gomez says, because he was offered to play Trump on the entire season of SNL and he turned it down to effing be here. Shane confirmed the story and said, they said, are you serious? You're going to say no? And I said, Lauren, I got to go to Coke Magic. Coke Magic is a show where Gomez performs magic tricks. Now, this is all interesting because remember that Hollywood Reporter piece I was picking away at? That suggested that James Austin Johnson wouldn't be doing Trump on the show. But wait, there's more. Late Nighter said during rehearsal of the Nate Bargatze episode, there was a version of the opening sketch where Maya Rudolph's Kamala Harris was home watching the debate. In the dress rehearsal version, James Austin Johnson's Trump was also watching the debate. The Trump character said, this guy's doing great. Before it was revealed that he's not watching the debate, he's actually watching American Ninja Warrior. So really interesting, right? I mean, Shane Gillis goes from, hey, you're on SNL, sorry you can't be on SNL, to now they're asking him to come back for a year. I mean, his Trump is really good. Probably is better than James Austin Johnson's right now, but wow. Now, new topic, interesting to me about Skankfest is, again, I'll remind you, I host this podcast every day, and as part of the prep, I go to several websites, and I also type in words like comedy and comedian. Nothing about Skankfest came up at all this year. I would have mentioned it. It didn't come up at all. It came up like 6 months ago when they announced it, and that's the last time I saw it. It came and went. I would have told you who was playing. I would have said something about it. Even stranger, as I put together the show on Tuesday, if you type Skankfest into Google and then click on the news tab, as one might do when preparing their comedy podcast, here's what comes up. The deadline story about Shane I just told you. The local Patch telling us about the official Skankfest after party at Peppermint Hippo. That story from 2 weeks ago. Dave Attell spoke to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. They were curious what a sober fellow like Dave Attell does late nights in Vegas these days. Dave said it's a blur. But the beauty of Vegas is you're always a block away from a t-shirt shop. You know me. I like a good saucy t-shirt, and I really like Vegas because we're on the same time frame. You can get breakfast at 2 in the morning. Even though I don't party, it's perfect for me, and the Sphere is right there as well. I haven't been there, but I've been to the BattleBots Arena, which is a couple blocks away. It looks bigger in person than it did on TV. He was asked about Skankfest and said this is the third year in Vegas, and I think Vegas and Skankfest, they're a perfect fit. It's a great town for the superfans to fly into. The guys from the Legion of Skanks podcast have always been cool to me, and I love what they've done. Now they've built this following that really appreciates live stand-up. The Journal was curious about Louis Black's retirement, and Attell said, Louis, of course, is the road warrior. Nobody toured harder than him, and the guy's a class all the way. He's been a role model for the rest of us. I'll be doing it 37 years now, and I'm hoping to make it to 40, but that really depends on my bills. So if you see me after that, then I got to pay these bills, but I do enjoy it. The only thing I don't like is the travel, and it's a little harder when you're older, but the shows are still really what gets you going. I know comedy in Vegas is kind of lower down, somewhere between magic and massage, but I'm working on new stuff all the time. He was worried about the temperature getting down to the low 90s and said he was going to bring a jacket. Late Nighter spoke to Chris Gethard and pointed out that when Mulaney did his talk show, a lot of people were comparing it to the Chris Gethard Show. Chris told Late Nighter, Mulaney is a cornerstone of modern comedy to a degree that no one can ignore it now, and moving forward, you just can't have another boring talk show that looks like every talk show since 1950. Mulaney has cracked that open. I mean, yeah, but it was son of Letterman, to which Chris Gethard talked about. He said, for me, like a lot of people my age, it's Letterman and Conan. My parents tell me I used to fake being asleep as a little kid. At like 3 to 4 years old, I'd pretend to be asleep on the couch, then they'd realize I was sitting there watching Johnny Carson with them. But Letterman was the real game changer. Amen, high five, says Johnny Mac. I remember the first time I stayed up late and watched Letterman with my older brother. I was definitely on the younger side of it, but someone who was built to understand that guy's being kind of a troublemaker. He's not Carson. Carson's what it's supposed to look like. This guy's not doing that. Amen. On top of that, a lot of my favorite stuff was stuff that Letterman platformed. You look at Andy Kaufman, Chris Elliott, Howard Stern. Not only did Letterman do a lot of stuff that really shook things up, he took the people who were really outlandish and gave them a national platform. And then Conan felt completely insane. Conan really felt like if you took the smartest version of me and my brother and our friends and put them on TV and just let them do whatever they want. I've often said if there's only one piece of comedy I could ever watch in my entire life again, it would be Conan Takes Mr. T Apple Picking. I think there's a little bit of dialogue that happens among comedy nerds when you think, what's the best sketch group of all time? And you go, Kids in the Hall, Monty Python, UCB, The Slade, whoever you want to say. But I really think that Conan's writing staff from that area, Brian Stack, Brian McCann, Kevin Dorff, Andy Blitz, Allison Silverman, John Glazer, if you just put that in a vacuum, that's one of the best sketch comedy groups ever assembled. It just happened to exist under the umbrella of this larger talk show. That's the best of the best sketch comedy of that generation, all under one roof, operating at a super high level. As for the Chris Gethard show, there were a lot of things I was just chasing, especially with Letterman and Conan. If I could do anything as funny as Dave dumping 10,000 bouncy balls off the roof of the studio onto the streets of New York, I'll die happy. If I could do anything as interesting or funny as a Conan staring contest bit, I feel like it's worth doing it. But there's definitely part of me that was like, these guys don't like doing these monologues, these political jokes, especially back then. That's just how Carson used to do it, so you're making them do that. I wish a late night show didn't have to do the monologue. It seems like the part that the hosts liked least. The Chris Gethard show was far from perfect. I'm not saying we nailed it, even the majority of the time. But I think some of the reason it developed a cult following was because people saw us going, let's see what we could do to maybe totally turn down the stuff we don't like about talk shows and then pour gasoline on the stuff that we do. Back to Mulaney's late night show. I've known John for many, many years now, but I saw those people going, whoa, man, this show has the Chris Gethard show in front of it. And I was really nervous about that because, just to be clear, John Mulaney does not need to rip me off in any way. He's a very brilliant guy, but a lot of it was very healthy. I was seeing a lot of the fans of the Gethard show going, this is cool to watch this Mulaney show, and seeing old Gethard show fans jump in and say, if you like this guy, you might really like this thing I liked back when I was in high school. Here's a link to the YouTube page. And they're all still up there. I emailed Mulaney after the first couple nights of his show to say, it's so cool to see what you're going for. It's bringing back a lot of positive feelings for me. You're taking big chances on live TV, and I really love it. I talked to my old showrunner, and he was like, the cool thing is that late night always builds on the history of late night. Carson built on Steve Allen, Letterman was building on Ernie Kovacs, then Conan built on Letterman, and I never ever hide the fact that my show was worshiping at the altar of Letterman and Conan. Friend of the podcast, Jason Zinneman, reviewed Ali Wong's new Netflix special for the New York Times. It's going to take me a minute to get to Ali's special. The Mets are in the playoffs. There's football. I have this life outside of doing the comedy podcast, so it's going to be a minute before you hear me talk about it. Jason writes, Wong always reminds me of Bill Burr because she seems funniest at her most tense, working through anger. Using that machine gun delivery, she pops off with some umbrage on light topics, but also displays strain. This is a show that at times feels undercooked. There are bits about dating younger men and Midwesterners that are less than ambitious. The show has the feel of someone rushing to tell us something. Her main message is that being a divorced woman in your 40s is better than it's cracked up to be. It's a promising take, in part because you rarely hear it, but the punchlines slow down as she zeroes in on herself, telling the crowd, look at me, as an alternative example of how it can be. Yikes. That doesn't sound great. Hannah Gadsby started their live show in New York City. The Daily Beast saw it and said, in Hannah Gadsby's latest excellent show, prepare for that sweet innocence to be left in undignified crumbs thanks to a brilliantly disgusting joke involving a discarded packet of Tim Tams and something. Tim Tams seem to be Australia's favorite chocolate biscuit. It consists of 2 malted biscuits separated by a light hard chocolate cream filling and coated in a thin layer of textured chocolate, but I digress. You may recall the joke involves a discarded packet of Tim Tams and something, let's say if you were cleaning a hotel room, you never want to find on the floor. Gadsby's both a wonderful joke and storyteller. A tilt of the head, a side eye, a pause can add to moments of extended hilarity, while adept at threading stories and jokes with moments of sharp self-reflection and confession. In this show, at certain moments, they insist that these moments are just between us. Reflecting on Taylor Swift's fame and global predominance, watch out. One time, Joe Coy made a Taylor Swift joke. I think we all know how that went. No, I'm not doing it, Scott, relax. Gadsby not only confesses to not being much of a fan, but also sums up Swift as a can of Coke masquerading as a sorority cult. Oh, man. I guess Hannah Gadsby won't be hosting the Golden Globes anytime soon. Gadsby has previously spoken of their own autism. Here they talk of social media being the place where neurotypical people go to experience the worst of the condition. They joke, I'm going to be canceled by feminists. I don't think there's anything more feminist than being canceled by feminists. Sounds like a fun show. Trevor Noah has unveiled his latest book. It is called Into the Uncut Grass, an illustrated story that invites readers of all ages on a journey of connection, imagination, and self-discovery. Into the Uncut Grass follows a young child's adventure in a magical landscape beyond the familiar world of home, discovering the joy of sharing, connection, and finding peace with the people we love. And that's your comedy news for today. If you enjoyed the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. If you'd like the program without commercial interruption, $5 a month. If you're on Apple Podcasts, just click on the banner. You can try it out for free for 30 days. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? Exactly. See you tomorrow.